This is my favorite shop. Hello. Martin, I have 5 grandchildren. I want to buy violins for them.
André Rieu store is my best. Hey there, Martin, I have 5 kids and grandkids now. I need to get them some fire lamps. André Rieu made a lot of money by dancing waltzes, but he just stopped everything after a scary accident. By the time he was 74, his body had had enough. Fans were sent home, shows were cancelled, and now his son runs his huge business company. The shocking truth, this man may have to quit, even though he swore he'd play until he was 140. He does 100 shows a year, and owns 80 properties. His last show in Maastricht might be the last time we see him. He was born in Maastricht, Netherlands, in 1949. His family loved music a lot, but it was hard for them to find love. A lot of people knew him as the director of the Maastricht Symphony Orchestra. A man who took things seriously and valued discipline over love. André was the third of 6 kids. As a kid, their house felt more like a military base than a place for kids to play. Hugs and comfort were hard to come by. He grew up with strict Roman Catholic parents who liked rules and kept quiet. Friends were not allowed to come over. They weren't laughing much. André once said, "My parents didn't love me very much." It wasn't a guess. It was something he really thought. He thought about it a lot. The cold style of André's parents didn't go well with his natural energy from a young age. His mother was so worried about her son's grades and music practice that she was hurt when teachers called him an artist. That way of thinking made André feel like he wasn't seen unless he was doing a great job. He went to therapy for years to try to figure out why his childhood felt so empty. But maybe that hunger turned into fire. He used it as fuel to change the way people around the world hear classical music one day. Something strange happened when I was 5 years old. He fell in love with his music teacher, not the violin itself. She was 18 years old, blonde and pretty. Because she was so interesting to him, he barely paid attention in class. But having a crush on her made him want to play all the time. He didn't care about style or numbers. It was all he could do to play like her. He watched her hands, how she moved them, and how she played. Within a few weeks, while other kids were still having trouble with basic notes, André had figured out vibrato, which is the way that music sounds alive with feeling. That's what stuck with him, not how great it was. Things between him and his father only got worse as he got older. It was too stiff and serious for André to play classical music. He wished for it to be happy, fun and full of life. But that thought was rude to his dad. His father yelled, "I didn't teach you how to do waltzes," when André said he wanted to play waltzes. It was a rude turn down. It got even colder when André brought home Marjorie, the woman he would marry. His mother didn't greet her. She told her to leave and told André to go back to his clean room like a kid. That was the last blow. She left with him, and he never looked back. After that, his parents never went to another one of his events, not even when he was doing huge shows all over the world. His father died in 1992, but he never got to see what André had become. But while all of this was going on, André was making a plan. Each began to notice something odd while playing in his dad's orchestra. They didn't seem to care about the music for the most part. Talked about the weather, they were upset about their pay. It had no life. During the encores though, something magical took place. A Strauss waltz would be played by the musicians, and the crowd would suddenly come to life. People laughed and smiled. They made a hum. The power changed. He knew then that he wanted to play this kind of music, not to please reviewers, but to make people feel something. His soft music one day was a surprise for a dying woman who hadn't opened her eyes in days. But when the music started, she opened the doors. At that point, André knew what music was really about. It wasn't about being perfect, it was about how you felt. That's when the thought of making his own group began to grow. André began small in 1978, when he was 29 years old, had a new baby at home, and didn't have much money to spend. He got together a small group of players to form the Maastricht Salon Orchestra. Anywhere they could, they played. Towns on the border with Germany and Belgium, weddings, and town houses. Each people had forgotten about the waltzes and cabaret music they played. It wasn't exciting. They didn't have much money. He didn't care though. It was something he loved to do. He played Franz Lehar's Golden and Silver Waltz one night at a small show. He put all of his heart into it, and he could feel something change. It seemed like the music was talking to him. He made up his mind that night. He was going to do this. It didn't bother him if people said it was corny. It didn't bother him if the rich and powerful laughed. He thought that classical music could be happy. He wouldn't stop until everyone else saw it too. In 1987, André Rieu reached a certain point in his life. He was almost 40 years old, and had been in charge of the Maastricht Salon Orchestra for almost 10 years. But something didn't feel right. There was no longer any thrill. The limits were easy to see. It was no longer enough to use the old structure. It was bigger what he wanted. He wanted to do more than just play music. He wished to make magic happen. Johann Strauss used to play the violin and lead at the same time, moving his whole body to the music. This made people happy and amazed. That life force, that fun, that feeling of being living. He wished it would happen again, but making the choice wasn't easy. When I started something new, I was taking a huge chance. It cost real money to hire skilled musicians, and he wasn't wealthy. He had to pull in more money for himself, for every artist he hired. It's cause there was no guarantee of bookings, and classical music wasn't known for taking chances. He knew he had to try though. The first show of his new group, the Johann Strauss Orchestra, took place on January 1, 1988. It was not big. There were only 12 artists, and a small crowd, but something felt off. Rieu did not do what was asked of him. It's not like him to dress the musicians in black. He didn't make the stage quiet and proper. He brought humor, folk music, dramatic lighting, and a sense of the theater. Some people didn't like it. People said it was cheap and silly, but the crowd liked it. It's cause the people there smiled, clapped, and took part. Rieu was determined not to lose the spark he had found. Then something happened that made everything different. It was May 1995, and the Champions League final was going on in Vienna. This Spiel was in Schit, and Bayern Munich, and something strange happened at halfway. Rieu and his musicians came out on the field, and played Shostakovich's Waltz No. 2. Someone in the Netherlands had heard the song in a TV ad, but no one was ready for what happened next. The whole stadium, around 50,000 football fans, began to move, hum, and get lost in the music. No one had ever seen anything like it before. Live video feeds of the event reached 300 million people in Europe. It was more than just a halftime show. It sent shockwaves through society. After that, Rieu sold 200,000 CDs in a few weeks. The record Strauss & Company, which came out the previous year, went viral all of a sudden. It stayed at the top of the Dutch album charts for 19 weeks in a row, making it the best-selling album in the country all of 2010. Classical music fans, who had never been interested in it before, bought his records, went to his shows, and fell in love with waltzes. But people who study music still say that football game was the time when André Rieu became more than just a violinist. A movement grew out of him. But not everyone was happy. Hard hits came back from the world of classical music. Someone lied about him, said he was breaking tradition, and said he was making music that was hundreds of years old into a circus. A famous conductor was criticized so badly in one piece that he called his shows musical pornography. The reviewers didn't like the loud jokes, the bright costumes, the simple sets, or the simple arrangements. 2008 was an even worse year for things, when Rieu built a copy of Schönbrunn Palace in Vienna. Fountains, ice rinks, horses, and everything else were just for the stage background. Tourists were shocked that it cost 34 million euros. Rieu didn't give up though. He thought that everyone should be able to enjoy music, not just professionals in concert rooms. He wanted everyone, kids, parents, teachers, cleaners and so on, to enjoy the same music that was once kept secret by strict rules. It was hard to hide the truth. A lot of people loved him. They crammed into his shows, they danced in the aisles, they bought records too. A lot of them. Strauss and his band were already famous in 1994. But after that show in 1995, it went through the roof. It sold 750,000 copies in just a few months in the Netherlands. Rarely does classical music make it into the top 5 on the charts in Germany, but this one did. It sold more than 3 million copies around the world by the time it reached its peak. In major European markets, it sold more than Celine Dion, Bon Jovi, and other big pop stars. Due to his work, even big record shops began to stock more classical music. People who work in the field called it the Rieu effect. Universal Music said that more money was made from his albums than from those of any other classical act. He changed more than just music. He changed the business as well. From that one dangerous choice, in 1987, everything came about. People thought he was cocky when he named his band after Johann Strauss. He showed them they were wrong over time. He brought Strauss back to life, not replaced him. By the 1980s, Strauss's waltzes were becoming less trendy. They were not played by many people. Strauss's music had been played 16 times more often by 2010, mostly because of Rura. It started out with only 12 players, and now has more than 60, making it even bigger than Strauss's group. To honor Strauss's 100th birthday in 1999, Rieu put out a tribute record, and talked about how much he admired him. Even the government of Austria gave him one of their top national awards for preserving the music of the country. Rieu did more than just play classical music, he made it famous all over the world. No one thought a musician would do what he did in 2008. He made a huge copy of Schönbrunn Palace in Vienna, and showed it off all over the world. This is a real house that he took with him all over the world. It was more than just a background. It had real waterfalls, ice rinks, chandeliers, and even Prague-style horse-drawn carriages. The Rolling Stones had never made anything bigger, and it wasn't just for show. It was Reu's dream to share the magic of Vienna with people who could never afford to visit. The planning was crazy. The stage took 100 people 6 days to build each time he did it, but it was worth it. In Europe and Australia, arenas were packed with people. He played in front of 38,605 people at the Telstra Dome in Melbourne alone, which broke the record for the largest classical concert ever held in Australia. Nearly 90,000 people came to all 3 shows in that city, and back in Europe, he sold out stadiums just as quickly. In Australia, at one point, 8 of the top 10 spots on the charts were taken by his DVDs. Pink and AC/DC were the only ones who got in. It wasn't just a run of good luck. Rieu's concerts were so famous that he made it into the top 10 of the world's highest-grossing tours, where he was in the same group as Madonna and the Police. That's pretty good for someone who is known as the King of the Waltz, and if that wasn't enough, he won more than 500 silver awards for selling albums and DVDs. No one else has ever played that number in classical music. Universal Music gave him a special chrome violin trophy to mark the event. People in the music business said they'd never seen anyone so successful. But not everything was shining in gold. In 2016, tragedy struck during a UK Christmas tour that was meant to be happy. Rube Merckx, Rieu's longtime trombonist, had a sudden heart attack while he was sleeping while the orchestra was in Leeds. He had been with Rieu for more than 20 years. His wife was there with him. She plays the violin in the group too. Back at home, they had 2 kids. The group felt like they were hit in the chest by the moment. Rieu didn't think twice. He called off the show in Nottingham that night. He soon after put off the rest of the UK tour. The calendar no longer has London, Birmingham, Manchester or Glasgow on it. There was a reason why Rieu called his band a family. A lot of them had worked for him for over 25 years. It was terrible to lose a family member right before Christmas. He was taken back to the Netherlands, but he died there 5 days later. Something was different when Rieu finally got back to the UK in March. The magic was still there, but not as many people were there. He remembered what took place in December, as did everyone else. Before March 2024, André Rieu's return to Mexico City almost broke him. He had spent decades making people happy with his music. At age 74, he was still traveling the world like he was half his age, until all of a sudden, his body gave out. André passed out after only 2 shows because of a terrible mix of jet lag, being at a high altitude, and having the flu. Mexico City, which is more than 2,000 meters above sea level, pushed him too far. Even the people in his orchestra got nosebleeds, and were tired because of it. He was worse for André though. It gave him a fever, and made him feel dizzy. He said he felt like he was 100 years old.
Behind the scenes that night, he called his wife and said something he had never said before. "I no longer want my first music day to be like this." That was the first time the showman who could do anything said he might need to slow down. The shows were called off. 40,000 fans missed it. It was time for the man who was proud of never missing a show to go home. This wasn't a one-time scare. André had been sick for years and kept going. He lost his balance in 2010 because of a virus in his inner ear. This ruined his tour, and it took him months to get better. He even did a show in 2019 while sick with a high fever. No one saw how much pain he was in. Mexico was not like that though. His legs were shaking. He felt like he couldn't hold on. He said it out loud this time. He made it clear when he got back to Maastricht. He was no longer going to hurt himself. Even though his son Pierre already did most of the work for the business, he went one step further. He began to change how tours were planned. No more foreign trips that wear you out, and no more pushing yourself to the limit. They began making plans for smaller, more intimate shows, maybe only in Europe. Mexico. Most likely never again. Pierre was no longer just a business boss. It was his job to keep his dad safe. He had slowly taken the load off André's shoulders over the years by taking care of the crew, planning, and making sure everything ran smoothly. André used to want to be in charge of everything. He now had full faith in Pierre. After every close call and health scare, their bond got stronger. Pierre had taken over as the ship's captain behind the scenes, making sure that his dad could still do the things he loved without putting his life at risk. But André's story hasn't just been about being sick and making great music. He got into a surprise dispute in 2015 that had nothing to do with music. 12 kids from a Romanian music group took the stage at one of his well-known summer shows in Maastricht. They were in a group led by the famous pan flute player Gheorghe Zamfir. Everything looked good until the Dutch government gave André a huge fine because they said the kids had worked past the allowed hours for minors. The fine was later lowered from €236,000 to €230,000, but it was still one of the biggest culture fines in Dutch history. The team for André fought back. They said that the kids didn't play after 11 p.m. Not André, but Zamfir was in charge of those kids when they came back on stage to wave during the final call. The courts fought for 2 years, but in the end they agreed with him. They didn't work for him. The fine was taken away. Still, the case made people look twice, and some have said it hurt his image. Even with these problems, André Rieu never lost touch with people. He was 2019. André didn't think twice when all of a band of artists with mental illness had their instruments stolen. He saw in the paper about it, and offered to fix everything. €20,000 worth of gear all at once. There was no publicity act or big news, just kindness. When Notre Dame Cathedral caught fire, he offered 700 tons of steel to help rebuild it. Small movements that showed a side of him that didn't always make news. Then there's his very valuable Stradivarius. At one point he almost had to sell it because of money problems. To keep it safe, he put it up for sale for a crazy amount of money. He took it off the market when things got better. You can't just play that violin with strings and wood. It's who he is. He now plays a rare 1732 model and sends it to Vienna twice a year for repairs. A skilled worker takes it apart, varnishes it, and makes sure it stays perfect. Every trip guards it like a treasure. There's no doubt that André Rieu is the most happy violinist in the world, but behind the smile lies a quiet kingdom held together by family and some surprising secrets. It all starts with Marjorie, his wife. She's more than just André's life partner, but most fans don't know it. She has been writing songs for the orchestra for decades without ever telling anyone about it. We don't need to see her work because it lives in the song. Marjorie stayed in the background while André became the star. She shaped the sound, guided the vision, and pushed him to make something new when the old world of classical music no longer excited him. She also pushed for the couple to buy a house that was over 1,000 years old, which was one of their bravest moves ever. The call was out of the blue. While they were on holiday, their accountant told them that Maastricht Castle, which was built in the 1400s, was for sale. Marjorie didn't think twice. She told them to sell more records. The Coeur family bought it right away. It was more than just a house. It turned into the center of the whole Rieu business. He turned the cold dark rooms into a warm bright dream world. He mixed styles from Austria, Bavaria and Venice when he designed it. The castle is now part office, part place for shows, and part dream. There are still sounds of music and family choices that shape the empire that you can hear deep inside. The next generation is now entering that world. Even though Daisy is only 9 years old, she is already practicing the piano with the group. It's not an act to get attention. This is how Rupa's power works. Slowly and quietly, with love and skill. He knows what it's like to grow up with music. He lived it, and now Daisy is too. Hilastavari family doesn't force their kids into the spotlight, just like her father Pierre did when he went from working behind the scenes to running the orchestra's business. They let them in through the door, and wait for the music to start. Rupa did more than just play music. A lot of the things that made classical concerts feel like cold distant rites were taken down by him. But when he got on stage, it wasn't about being quiet, standing straight, or wearing a dress. It was about happiness. It was okay to dance, but you had to be in the hallways. Yes, you were in the right place to sing, clap or cry. In the late 2000s and early 2010s he told people not to wear ball gowns, unless they were going to spin around in them. People loved how he turned the music into a party. In the past, most classical events were more like classes than live shows. There were strict rules, stiff clothes, and quiet groups. If you clapped at the wrong time, you could get a mean look that made Rupa angry. He was tired of the cold wall between musicians and listeners after years of playing in traditional orchestras, so he changed things. It started to feel more like a wedding than a recital, with lots of laughs, tears, and sometimes even fake snow to set the mood. Not only was this a protest, it was also smart. Some people stuck to ads in newspapers and on posters, but Rupa joined social media before most of his rivals even knew what it was. Before other orchestras could agree on whether Instagram was too casual, Rupa had already gone global. Not only did his performance of Danny Boy in Dublin reach fans, it went viral and got millions of views, just like a music video that would have made it to the top of the charts. But it wasn't just that he went online that made him smart, it was how he used it. At each tour stop there was music, themes, and content that felt like they were made just for that place. He didn't just ask people to come to the show, he made them want to. From polls to parties, to gifts, there's something for everyone. Every part was meant to bring people together, not just people who knew Beethoven's works inside and out felt like they belonged to classical music because of him. Then the movie age began. Rupas wasn't happy with just selling out stadiums, so he put his shows on movie screens, but he didn't just film a stage and leave. He told a story instead. In his 2025 movie The Dream Continues, he shows his hometown through a river, putting together home movies, behind-the-scenes videos, and live shows from all over the world. It wasn't just music any longer. For him it was about memories, feelings, and letting people into his dream. Even movie houses had to change. Rules like keeping quiet and having straight backs were no longer in place. Now people could bring drinks and snacks and curl up for a night that felt more like a party than a movie. Simple but strong, Rupa knew something. People need to really feel something. He gave it to them. At first reviewers were very mean. They made fun of his hair, the way he put on shows, and his huge number of fans. Some people said he was the worst thing that ever happened to classical music, but things changed when academics and business schools began to pay attention. Rupa's selling out stadiums, and topping the charts while other orchestras begged for money and played to halls that were only half full. Things that used to look like tricks, started to look like ways to stay alive all of a sudden. Many people know André Rieu for his beautiful waltzes and friendly smile, but his past is much darker than the focus makes it seem. A man who put on big concerts and tours that sold out years of treatment just to fix the damage done by a cold and distant father. He never heard his dad say he was proud of him, or say nice things about how well he played the violin. He also never really saw him. André was in so much pain that he didn't even go to the funeral for his father. When he was young he saw his brother run away to another country to get away from the same mental storm. He was able to move on after treatment, even though the wounds are still there. When André is not on stage, his life is surprisingly calm and useful. Fans think he lives a fancy and expensive life, but he's actually been buying homes in secret. There are almost 80 homes spread out across the Netherlands. It began after a big financial crisis that almost put him out of business. His Stradivarius fiddle and everything else he owned were on the line at one point. He found out the hard way that dreams can cost a lot of money, so now he puts his money into real estate instead of castles and pools. He was different after that. Even though his stage image still sparkled, it made him wary. Now that André is getting close to his 75th birthday, he is planning something huge, maybe even one last big party. He'll go back to Maastricht, where he grew up, for a music series that feels more like a goodbye than a party. His health has already shown signs of trouble. He has lost shows and isn't sure how much longer he can keep going. He doesn't want to leave yet though. When asked, André's son Pierre, who runs the production business, said that he would rather give up his valuable violin than fire an orchestra member. That's how much he loves the people who have been with him for decades. Still, André just laughs it off when someone brings up retirement. In jokes, he says he'll keep playing until he's 140. He's also half joking. He keeps going because he is so stubborn. He does up to 100 shows a year, even though he's 75 years old, and he travels with a personal trainer and worries about his sleep all the time to stay sharp. He really thinks that music can heal. Fans have told him this, and some doctors have even said that his shows are like medicine. That could be why he won't stop. He plays every sound as a way of giving something back to the world. A way for him to stay young and change the pain he felt as a child.